Good Lord, people, it's Sunday night, and that means it's Sunday night service. And look who I have with me, Dr. Jill Carnahan. Holy cow, the author of Unexpected. I mean, this is a fantastic book, Finding Resilience Through Functional Medicine, Science, and Faith. And I pretty well have read most of the book today. I have like 15 pages to go. I mean, I couldn't put it down. Like I had to stop so that I could get in here and get ready tonight. So, guys, when you get logged on, tell us where you're from, say hello, and then we are going to be talking about. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but we're going to talk about mold and memory loss tonight because that's a big piece of your story, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dr. Carnahan, why you guys are logging on. She's a medical doctor and she's board certified in integrative holistic medicine. She's known as your functional medicine expert. She's like the Sherlock Holmes of medicine is what she's known as. She solves cases of the most for solving the case of the most well-known medical mysteries, utilizing state-of-the-art lab testing, biochemical analysis. She helps each patient identify the root cause of whatever it is that's going on with them. In their life. Sorry, I'm so excited over here. I can't. She uses nutritional protocols, supplements, lifestyle changes, all kinds of things to get to the root cause of her patients because she has recovered from breast cancer, Crohn's disease, mold toxicity, and all kinds of things, which you will learn about in this book, which is her memoir and a medical guide all at the same time. It's fascinating. So, she's the medical director of Flatiron Functional Medicine, which is in Colorado, correct?
Yeah, Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah, in Boulder. And she brings a unique perspective to treating a variety of complex and chronic illnesses. She's traveled the world, sharing her knowledge of hope, health, and healing live on stage, as well as through newsletters, articles, books. I mean, she's been in People magazine, she's been on TV, she's been everywhere. And I'm honored and thrilled to have her here tonight talking about her brand new book. So, Dr. Carnahan, thank you for taking the time out of your day, your Sunday evening to be here.
You are welcome. It is a delight to be here. I love your energy. I remember the first time we met at Mindshare, and I was like, I like her. Just like, and then we found out we both have a common faith and like all kinds of other things, but it's just been really neat to get to know you.
Yeah. So my friend Marnie, who you all know, she's talked to us before. She's a classically trained homeopath and she knows Dr. Carnahan and just absolutely, swears by her. And I tell you what, so listen, I read most of the book today. I had already peeked in it and read a few things, but I couldn't put it down once I started reading. And I mean, this book has been out for a few months. It's been out for a few months, correct?
6 weeks. So not really.
6 weeks. 6 weeks. And so it is her story. It is her biography, her, I don't know, it's everything about her, plus her medical knowledge. So it's like the best of the best here. And it's Unexpected, Finding Resilience Through Functional Medicine, Science, and Faith. And she talks about her cancer journey and her Crohn's journey. And then what we're going to talk about tonight, along with environmental toxicity, but mold.
Yeah.
Wow. Your description of mold in your office building, in your clinic.
Yeah. So it's interesting because as you framed it, first of all, the backstory is 8 years ago, God put on my heart I needed to write my book. And I was like arguing because like, you got to just tell your story. And I'm just having this argument with the divine. But, it's funny, like, well, no one does that. And then the publishers are like, well, you can't write a memoir unless you're Michelle Obama or, so I just had this, but I knew in my heart, and this is the part of the lesson in the book. And for your listeners, there's always an intuition about our health, about our illness, about where we need to go, who we need to be with, friends, family, all these things in our lives. Our intuition is so powerful. And so often we analytically judge and we say, oh, no, that can't be true. So my judge was like, I can't write a memoir, no way. But then I kept feeling like this is really where it's at, because as we mentioned before, we all connect with story. And for for generations and generations and generations, our ancestors told story to get points across. And I feel like if God has given me all these experiences, like I'm like a cat with 9 lives and I'm on number 10. And if that's true, then giving meaning and purpose to that suffering actually helps the reader, because we all have suffering. I always say we either just got through something, we're in the midst of something, or it's coming. Like there's only 3 options. And because we're human and because we all have commonality, my story is not unique. It's just a prototype for how do you get through things, especially illness, when life gets really tough, because I happen to have a lot of stories about really tough circumstances. And fortunately, each time I was able to figure out a way out. And by the grace of God, I'm still here.
I'm telling you. And she grew up on a farm. Were you in Illinois? Did you grow up in Illinois? Yeah, grew up on a farm in Illinois, and it's all in the book about her farm life and, moldy corn. I was laughing at some of this when I was reading it because I was like, holy cow. And then she's in medical school at 25. So what year were you when you were diagnosed with breast cancer?
I was just the beginning of my third year. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you did it. My son just finished his second year of medical school last week, got his white coat last week.
Wow.
And I don't know how you did this.
I don't either. And I was just married with 3 stepchildren to boot. Like, it wasn't just like I look back at that girl and I'm like, what in the world? How did you do it, sister? To myself, like, but you know what? That's part of this lesson of breast cancer. Breasts are a nourishing organ, right? And when we come into life as a healer, we want to love and serve people, and we want to give and give and give and give and give. I got married. I met my ex-husband at 19, got married at 21. I inherited 3 beautiful stepchildren, was glad and joyous to raise them. There was nothing problematic about that, but one of them had Down syndrome and autism. So it was a handicap too. And all that to say, and I'm going to medical school, and it was a lot on my sensitive system, and I didn't acknowledge that. And I think my breast and breast cancer were a way of kind of subconsciously saying, excuse me, care for yourself too, And I think for women who are suffering from breast cancer, where you're 25 or 65, there's a lesson in breast cancer that's about making sure that we nourish ourselves as well as others. There's nothing wrong with nourishing others, but I grew up in a culture, kind of conservative Christian culture, where the women were very subservient and very service oriented, and you denied yourself, put everybody else first. And what I learned in the healing in this and any autoimmune disease, which I also went through, it's so important to actually love and care for yourself. And it's okay, right? I was taught that it was almost like wrong to put myself first. And in switching that and learning that, that's part of my healing. And that's part of everyone's healing if you're like me and have experienced that, where you kind of, put everybody else's at your own expense. And my process of doing that really caught up with me, because I almost died, from the breast cancer.
Yes. And then you almost died with Crohn's. I mean, my gosh, working in the ER and collapsed. I think that's right. And then woke up in the operating room. I mean, my goodness. So, but the wounded healer, in my opinion, makes the best healer, right? And again, people come from all over to see you. But let's talk about mold. Let's talk about environmental stuff, right? Toxins and mold. And let's break it down.
Yeah. So this is the elephant in the room. And this is my passion now is environmental toxicity. And at the core framework of functional medicine, why this is so critical is almost all chronic immune dysfunction and inflammation comes from toxic load and infectious burden. And where mold comes in is 1 in 4 homes and buildings in the US have mold. Many, many people have no idea that mold is a trigger to their migraines, their autoimmunity, their mast cell activation, their gut issues, their brain issues, their early onset dementia. This is 1 in 3, according to Bredesen, who teaches the Bredesen protocol. 1 in 3 early onset dementia is from mold. So this is massively affecting us. And many people just go into their doctor, they're diagnosed with Alzheimer's or new onset autoimmunity or joint pain and arthritis or migraine headaches or mast cell activation or gut dysfunction or chronic sinus infections. I could go on and on and on. And they're diagnosed with those labels, but the truth is that mold underlies this. So what happens is when water damages porous materials in a building through rain, through intrusion, through groundwater seepage through the foundation, even a washer or dryer leak or a fridge line leak, and how many of us have not had a tub overflow or a shower leak, or people don't know even caulking in the shower is not always waterproof. So unless you have a sealant on the grout, you can be getting water intrusion through your grout. So there's these things that people don't even know about. And with new construction, people think, oh, we're safe. We got a new home, or it's a multi-million-dollar home. Nope, you're not safe, because new construction often is put together really quickly with materials that were left outside in the snow or in the rain. And so your boards, your timbers got, saturated with water, and then there are nidus from mold to grow. So first, bottom line is, this is so prevalent, so don't think you're immune. You want to be, and as a clinician who's looking for this, you have to have a good insight and ask the right questions, because if I just ask a patient, do you have mold in your home? 99% will be like, no. But then I say, well, have you ever had a water leak? Have you ever had your fridge, line leak? Have you ever had a tub overflow? Have you ever had intrusion from a sump pump? And on and on and on. And then we start to get somewhere, because we start to find out that there was some water damage. So all that to say, it's very, very, very common, and it masquerades as many, many other things, because mold toxins, the toxins they produce, will cause immune dysfunction. They'll cause brain dysfunction. They'll cause kidney dysfunction. They'll cause chronic sinus. And it's a real big issue.
It is a real big issue. And I think I was telling you, I texted you today, my mom is 78 now, but she's been in an assisted living for, to be 4 years next month.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, at least 4 or 5 years, we noticed her memory issues. But the home that I grew up in, I just paid $18,000 to have it remediated. I tell you, the mold in that house, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, no doubt
Yeah.
that my mom's Alzheimer's, a huge piece of it is this mold. And now she's so far gone that, she lives in an assisted, I don't know what to do, but I mean, I don't know if there's anything I can do, but I mean, it was the Stachybotrys. It was all the things that you talked about.
Really nasty. The nasty
mold. And I mean, when I say everywhere, it was everywhere in the majority of the house where my mom spent the bulk of her time.
Goodness.
So you talked about some of the symptoms. I mean, the brain fog, the memory loss, the sinus stuff. I mean, my mom had all of that.
Yeah.
But so many people have all of that going on.
Yeah. And so then how do you know? Well, a couple of questions. So let's talk about, because you can do expensive testing, but there's some pretty simple ways to kind of have an idea which direction to go. And this is how I start. First of all, there's a visual contrast study you can do online for free. So if you just search visual contrast study, VCS, there's a Shoemaker website. I think Surviving Mold has one, and then freevcs.com, if I'm remembering right, has one. These are basically tests for visual acuity on the retina. So the retina has very tiny blood vessels, and mold affects blood flow to the tiny periphery capillaries. So if you have a mold or biotoxin exposure, often the ability to detect contrast with black and white lines is impaired. So this is not diagnostic, but if you fail that test, you want to look and make sure you don't have mold, because it's an easy way to screen. We in our office do visual contrast testing, so some doctors can actually do it in the office as well, but you can do it online. You do have to make sure you're exactly where they say, like 18 inches from the screen, and the lights are bright, and they'll tell you how to do it. You want to make sure that's up to speed, and then they'll do one eye at a time. And if you fail, then you might want to get tested. That's a pretty easy way to start. Questions and symptoms. Let's talk about that. So brain is the number one effect for most people. So cognition, thinking, focus, concentration, memory, word finding in particular. My cognition was pretty good. I was still able to diagnose and treat patients appropriately, but my word finding, I'd forget patients' names, or I'd forget words that I'd want to say dog and I meant to say cat, or things like that, where I'd flip words around. So that's real common. And then gut is often affected because mold will decrease melanocyte stimulating hormone, which affects permeability. And some of the animal studies link low MSH to Crohn's and colitis, so inflammatory bowel disease. And we know that mold is probably the number one trigger of histamine production. So anything related to histamine, allergies, asthma, congestion, sinuses, skin rashes, problems like that, even cystic acne can be associated with mold. And the histamine can also cause leaky brain. It can cause leaky gut. So all of a sudden you have new food allergies, food intolerances, you can't tolerate things. This is the picture. Now, like I said, it can affect hydration. It can make you drink and pee, and your hydration regulation system is broken. So you'll tend to pee through the night, get up during the night and pee. So if you're frequently urinating for no reason, or you can't stay hydrated, that's another clue. Partially because of that, where the ADH stops regulating hydration, you get this salt gradient on your skin. So when you start to sweat, you have a more salty gradient because you're losing hydration, and you literally can create a human battery. So one of the other things people talk about is static shocks, like we do in the wintertime, but all year round. I've seen patients with mold that are so statically shocked, they break computers and watches, like electronics. So it's crazy, some of the things. The brain, I said, the nervous system, a lot of times numbness, tingling, neuropathies, other kinds of things can happen. So this mold can be crazy. One thing I talk about in the book is chitomium is my worst enemy, and I've had many exposures to chitomium. I now call it the narcoleptic mold. For me, chitomium increases nitric oxide production, which is a vasodilator, good for exercise and blood flow. But for me, it takes my 90 over 60 normal blood pressure and drops it to like 80 over 55, and I can't stand up. I need to lay down and sleep immediately. It's like Sleeping Beauty, just boom, I'm out. So I always know after chitomium exposure, what I feel is like, oh my God, I need to lay down now. I could be like on a concrete sidewalk and be like, I don't lay down, but my mind is like, I'm so tired, I can't even keep vertical. And it's because it drops my blood pressure. So that's just one example. And I could go on, but mold has a lot of insidious effects, like creating more autoimmune inflammation. So many people will present with new onset, arthritis, or new onset brain stuff, or new thyroiditis, or something like that. And they have no idea that mold is at the root.
I swear. Well, page 183, she talks about what is it? Chitomium?
Chitomium. Yeah. Chitomium.
Chitomium. And your blood pressure, and
Yeah.
literally having to pull over
Yes.
on the road, and you almost hit a police officer. You also, I mean, I read that. I'm telling you, I read all of this. I read 90% of this book today, and I could not put it down. And I mean, and it's unbelievable because you talked about driving home in this fog and leaving the gym, the hair salon, and there was one other place.
The church. My church I used to attend.
Oh, yeah, your church. And
so let's talk about that real quick, because that was such a crazy thing. I mean, I love church, right? I get all excited and happy and worshiping. But this time, while I was going to that moldy church, I would come home, and on the drive home from church, I had just gotten exposed to mold unbeknownst to me. I was like crying and depressed, and I am not a depressed person. I've literally never. So I was like, oh, everything's terrible. Life is awful. I get home and take charcoal and I'd be better. And I talk about in the book how many depressions and mood disorders and psychiatric diagnoses are mold.
Amen to that. Well, let me tell you, I was just getting ready to talk. Amber, I had no idea you were going to be on here tonight. I was going to share about someone I knew who literally at this young age, and they had just built the house. Amber, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this was a brand new house. She's got a few children. She got lost driving home, could not spell her kids' names. I mean, people thought, well, she was losing her mind. And this was a brand new home, and it was mold. It was mold. She moved out. It was a big house. It was, and I may be wrong on this, but I think a lot of the mold was in the bathroom. I think, but I just saw her just recently, just probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I mean, she looks fantastic. But this has been a big journey for her and her family.
Oh, yeah. That was the other thing I mentioned, the visual contrast test. The other thing is history. So if you look at your timeline and say, when did I last feel well? When did I last feel vibrant and healthy and well? And then when did things change? You can often like write down on your journal some things in your timeline. And often there'll be a story. I felt great in 2018. 2019, we bought a new home. We moved in. I was fine for 6 months or 12 months. And then things started to go downhill. Or I was fine in the new home until the basement flooded. Or my story involves a boulder flood of massive proportions in 2013 that flooded the whole entire town. And my office building, which was already a little moldy, got a lot more water damage. And so after that, it was probably 6 to 9 months after I started having symptoms. And that's a real typical story where there's some water intrusion or a move to a new or different environment. So take note, if you don't know, do I have mold? Think about your history. Do a timeline.
Well, I just saw a patient, I guess it was last Wednesday, and she had been new to me. I've only seen her a few times, but I wasn't thinking mold. I mean, there were interesting symptoms, severe bloating and fatigue and several things. But come to find out, in the last 6 months, she has found mold in her 120 something year old house here in Franklin. And so somebody else found it. And actually, it was over a child who was having some issues at school. And the guidance counselor said, this sounds like mold to me. Is there mold in your home? No provider from Hollywood to here
Right.
had thought about this, and I missed it as well. And
Wow.
she feels great now. But I mean, they had to move out. They remediated the home right here
Mhm.
downtown Franklin, an old house. And she was telling me that I just lost my train of thought, but I missed it, which makes me mad because I don't like that. Oh,
Oh,
and I asked her, I said, when did you move into the house? And I think it was like 2018. Literally, symptoms started 6 to
yeah.
9 months later. And she's been struggling with this ever since. So history is huge,
It
huge.
really is, and don't feel bad. This is most doctors miss it because unless you're I'll tell you, for me, before 2014, when I got very sick from mold, I did not have it on my radar. And so unless you have it on your radar, and then after that, I thought, well, gosh, not everybody's getting mold. But as I just would look and do the data and do the testing over and over and over again, huge percentage, I would say 40 to 60% of the patients I see have mold issues. But if you're a doctor just looking at the diagnosis, you can get another diagnosis. You can have rheumatoid arthritis or Hashimoto's thyroiditis or dementia, and that diagnosis is just what you have, and you don't go deeper. And again, nothing wrong with that, but there's a high index of suspicion. And for you listening out there, if you're suspicious, be your own advocate, because no doctor is going to do that for you. Even the best practitioners like Deanie and I, you really need to be your own advocate and find someone to help you if you suspect it, and trust your intuition.
Amen to that. And Amber did. Both her kids. I mean, oh my gosh, Amber, I
Wow,
remember.
Amber, that's amazing. You poor thing.
Oh, yeah, it was something, and thank goodness she had a good healthcare provider eventually, I mean,
Mhm.
it took a toll on that family.
Yeah.
And Tiffany, my daughter, got a mold exposure at her college dorm, and we had to withdraw her from school. It took 10 months for her to
Wow.
recover. Yes,
This
it
is
did.
so common. I treat a lot of college kids that are getting in these dorms, and the dorms are not upkept properly. And I see that many, many, many times with the college kids, sadly. I think
Yeah.
courthouses, school buildings, and even high schools. A lot of our high schools are full of mold.
But what do we do? What do they do? I have another patient,
Mhm.
not Tiffany's, but she ended up with mold in two different universities here,
Mhm.
two universities, and yeah, I don't know, I don't know
It's
what you do,
scary
but
in a way, except that we do have control. So what do you do, right?
yeah,
So
what
first
do
thing
you do?
is dilution is the solution to pollution. So not everyone can move immediately or remediate immediately. The first bottom line way of treating mold is you do have to get out of the exposure in some way. And I'll give you some options there. But the first thing is, say you find out if you have a musty smell anywhere in your home. Musty smells are VOCs, volatile organic compounds from mold. That is a part of the diagnostic criteria. So you have mold if you have a musty smell. Don't question that. Number two, visible mold. Obviously, if we look in the ceiling and see mold in the vents or see mold on the wall, that's clear. But many people I see have invisible mold behind a wall, because typically the roof leaked or the window leaked, and something between the boards of the drywall and your wall, or under your sink, under the floorboards, or there's so many ways. But if you're like walking on your floor in your kitchen, it's hardwood and it's really warped, that's probably water damage. So any signs of old water damage, you need to suspect mold. And first thing you could do is get a good inspector in. But I often have patients do something that's a little less expensive first. It's called an ERMI. ERMI is old technology, so I don't like to use that, but you still can get, if you Google search ERMI, from mycometrics.com or envirobiotics.com. Those are both websites that you can get these from. This is going to be, they'll send you a Swiffer. Yeah, it's all in the book. They'll send you a Swiffer cloth, and all you do is take dust from your home. So the technical term of this is called qPCR. It means it does PCR testing for the DNA of mold in the dust of your home. So it gives you a snapshot of historically what might have been there. And typically, if you clean fairly frequently, you can just wait to clean for 2 weeks and see what recently might be in your air. If you want, you can take a snip of your furnace filter, and that's another great way to do it, because all of your airflow has gone through that. And that's a great way to start for least expensive amount of money, because if you see species like Cotomium or Stachybotrys or lots of Aspergillus on that sample, then you can call and hire an inspector to say, where is this coming from? And that saves you a little money along the line, because you can start there. But say you have mold, or you found mold, and you're like, what do we do? So the first thing is, like I said, you're not going to get well if you have massive amounts of mold in your environment. There's just no amount of supplements, IVs, diet changes, anything that will completely take away that exposure if it's making you ill. Just sorry to say that, but that's the truth. But if you can't remediate immediately, or you have some problems or whatever, opening your windows, getting airflow, making sure you have a standalone good air filter. You want a filter that has a good HEPA filter, but also a VOC filter. That's volatile organic compounds. Those are ones that typically contain zeolite or charcoal to pull out the things like formaldehyde or smoke or off-gassing or smells or whatever. The particulate that mold produces, the toxins, they are smaller than viruses. So they're very, very tiny. They're airborne. And so they can go right into your alveoli, into your lungs, and into the bloodstream immediately. So within 5 or 10 seconds of breathing mycotoxins in the air, they're going to be in your bloodstream. It is do not pass go. And because that reason, you want to get a filter in your house if you have a mold exposure, especially the bedroom where you sleep, of something that has a HEPA and VOC. Options are IQ Air, Air Doctor, Austin Air. I have 5 Air Doctor or Austin Airs at work and 3 at home. That's how much I believe in this. So it's really important because clean air is where it starts. And then whatever you can do to, get the airflow and air exchange until you can remediate. And then when you remediate, you need to cut out any material. The remediators will know how to do this that is affected by mold that's porous. So if there's drywall, if there's anything that's not like concrete or the foundational of the house, you need to get rid of that. And you need to cut it out. And then you have a big hole in your wall, right? And then you need to fix it. But after you fix it, if you're just like done and you fix that hole in the wall, but you still have that mycotoxins in your environment from previously before the mold was fixed, you're not going to feel well. So what is the key that many people don't know, and even remediators who don't know about mold-related illness don't know, is after remediation, that's how you really get well. And these are the things you do. Number one, you need a fog with an oil-based fog to pull down all the particulate to the ground or to the surface. Number two, you need to do a small particulate clean. You can do it yourself. You can hire a cleaner. You can hire a professional. And that's wipe down every single surface in the entire place and get rid of the dust that contains the mold, because these toxins travel on dust. So all that dust and stuff that was accumulating in your home before the remediation is still there after the remediation. And that particulate, even if it's dead debris, will still make you sick. So this is kind of the big picture of how you get that taken care of to get well.
Holy moly. That was wow. Yeah, that's exactly how it works. I mean, of course, I never in a million years thought I was going to have to go through this. And like I said, up in Kentucky, it was fascinating what they did. I think the huge expense comes from that. Well, I guess
the clean is very expensive.
I've never seen anything like it. I mean, everything in the home was touched.
Yeah.
And I literally had just cleaned the entire house out because my mom is not there anymore and I had bought the home. So, I mean, a long story, but so most of the books, everything was there, but otherwise they would have had to throw all the books away and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
From what I understand. Michelle says, can you post the Swifter name again? Let me write it in. What?
Sure. So the 2 websites that have this you're going to find it as ERMI, ERMI test. And that technology is old. So a lot of inspectors, if you say ERMI, they're like, oh, that's not valid. The type of test is still valid. So even though it's called an ERMI, the ERMI technology is not valid. It's qPCR is the real name, and the qPCR is valid. The 2 websites, number one, mycometrics.com. mycometrics.com, and the other, I think it's envirobiotics.com or Enviro. I can double check that, Deanie.
It's in her book.
It's in the book.
I mean, it's in the book. So get the book, order it. You can order it. You can get it anywhere they sell books. So but literally it's all in the book, and I don't have time to go through it right now, but it's all in the book. I have highlighted and turned it down.
And Danny, if you want to put in, there's a website with all kinds of free stuff. If you get the book, it's just readunexpected.com. So get the book wherever you want to get the book, but go back there because I've got free lectures and things that you can download after you purchase the book. And I want you to get those free things because they're fun. And this is just a side note, but I got to show you, Danny, coloring book. On there is a coloring book to go with it's a journaling coloring book, so you can do that right alongside and color while you're doing the book.
Okay, I got it right there. I just posted it. So okay, what it's interesting. So you were talking about places that there is mold, and I may have to get up and shut my window. But we're going to have a huge storm here, but I keep my windows crossed.
Exactly, right? Because me too. Dilution is the solution to pollution. So you want airflow no matter what, and you want air filters. swear by those air filters. If I didn't have had those during the remediation and after, and that's the one thing, if there's one thing you do, get a good air filter in your bedroom. So
I have an Air Doctor in mine, but you use a different brand, huh?
I love Air Doctor. I have them as well, but Austin Air is what I have primarily. Austin Air, like the
Okay.
city in Texas. Yeah, those are my two favorites, though. Absolutely.
Okay.
So then you
I
have to
found,
fix yourself, right? So
what'd you say?
I said, then after you fix your home, you have to fix yourself, and we can talk.
Okay, and how do we do that? One other place I want y'all to think about, the fireplace. When they found so much mold behind my mom's fireplace, when we ripped all of that out, I mean, there was mold everywhere from water, I guess, coming down.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened, but mold everywhere. That's someplace that I would have not thought to have looked.
That's a great, great, great point, because that's the thing. This is such an insidious thing that you don't think about. And literally, if you learn, I have a condo I love and fine, but if I ever buy a home, I have learned myself, and you can do this too. You don't need an inspector to look for signs of water damage. And there's maybe 5 or 10 simple things that you can look for, like, the wood warping or things like that. And if you know those things and you see signs of water damage, you may not see the mold, but then you're like, okay, we got to look deeper. And that's how you can protect yourself and know when you buy a home or rent a home or do something. So fixing yourself. So the first thing, you have to get out of the mold, you have to deal with that and do whatever temporary measures. The next thing is, so let's talk really briefly about liver gallbladder, because that's where it all happens. Liver gallbladder is our blood filter. It's like the filter in our car, filtering the gas. And so basically, and the oil. Basically, what happens is our blood goes through the liver directly from the gut and filters out all the chemicals and things. What happens there is the mycotoxins that might have been in the blood or the tissues, if they're mobilized, will go through the liver. They'll transform from phase 1, phase 2, get spewed out into the bile acid, and the bile drips into the small bowel and helps us to emulsify fats in the gut. But the bile contains cholesterol and contains toxins. And so if we have this really nice circulation where we reabsorb about 95% of our bile, so we can reuse it because it helps us digest food, but then we reabsorb it. So if our toxins are getting stored there, they're dumped out and we just reabsorb it. It's like a merry-go-round. So part of the detox process, just understanding that you need to support liver. Things that support liver are anything that makes more glutathione. You can take glutathione, you can do IV glutathione, you can do oral liposomal, but you can also take precursors like N-acetylcysteine, lipoic acid, milk thistle, vitamin C, glycine, glutamine. All these things are things that make more glutathione, because you want to enhance. Glutathione is your master detoxifier. It's the thing that allows you to mobilize and get rid of toxins. You must have glutathione, and mold is really nasty because its number one thing, it will sabotage your glutathione production and drop it, like tank it. So not only are you exposed to this toxin takes away the thing that could actually help you get rid of it. So it's really nasty. So you need to enhance glutathione production through all those ways I mentioned. And then you need to enhance bile acid secretion. And we use that, things like bitters or cholagogues, things that help the liver and gallbladder secrete their juices. That could be like dandelion or gentian or bitters that you take with meals. And then you want a binder, because the binder is going to actually grab it with electrostatic charge on the bile and escort it out through the gut so that you don't keep reabsorbing. Binders that are common, there's prescription like cholestyramine or Welchol, and then there's over-the-counter, which is my preferred, clay, charcoal, zeolite, glycomannan, chlorella. There's many, many, and a combination works best. In my history with some nasty chitomium and stachy, I used a lot of just charcoal and Welchol, and that worked very well. So charcoal I find to be really well for the really nasty black toxic molds, but there's other ways that you can do that, and you can combine those as well. And there's tons of binders on the market, but you don't have to get an expensive combo. You can get a basic charcoal over the counter at Walgreens and it works.
Yes, that's key. You're right. You're right about that. Okay, so how do we get it out of the house? How do we get it out of ourselves? I mean, and it's different for everyone, I suppose, right? How long it
Yeah.
takes for people to feel better. I mean, does it
My
take?
journey was about 18 months, and it wasn't that I wasn't getting well along the way, but to feel maybe 80% better, it was over a year to really get that. And you see me now, my skin's clear, everything's fine, but I had cystic acne, I had puffy eyes, I had swollen ankles. It affects everything, and it affects your body so dramatically. I did not look like this at all when I was having the mold exposure. So that mobilization is key. Let's talk briefly about that, because part of the issue here is you want to mobilize the toxins out of your tissue. So if you've inhaled it and gotten it into your system, your bloodstream, then it goes to store in your tissues. So ways to get it out of your tissues would be dry brushing, castor oil packs, lymphatic drainage massage, rebounding, hot cold baths, Epsom salt baths, and infrared sauna. That's a big one. So anything you can do to mobilize out of your tissues, that's really important, that mobilization. But you also have to have excretion, because if you mobilize, that's when people get more sick. They don't feel well, and they're like, what's wrong? Well, you're mobilizing too much. You're getting out of your tissues into your bloodstream, and you feel really, really toxic. I'm sure some of the listeners who've been through mold can say, yeah, I remember that. For me, I went really heavy on the binders, and I got hives head to toe for almost 2 months because I was pushing toxins way too quickly. So you want to enhance that excretion. And that's why I mentioned some of those things like dry brushing, castor oil packs, coffee enemas, which is funny because most MDs won't talk about that, but they really, all those things, right? All those things really, really do enhance the process of that liver gallbladder excretion. And if you mobilize too much without excretion, you get stuck, you feel terrible.
Absolutely. You're right about that. Man, I'm a huge fan of castor oil packs. In fact, I had a colonoscopy on, what's today, Sunday? When did I have the colonoscopy? Thursday? No, Friday, Cinco de Mayo. I had and I did a castor oil pack that night just because I thought, well, it's not going to hurt me, could help me while I'm doing all this prep and stuff. But infrared sauna, I'm looking at my sauna. I have a portable sauna, relax sauna right here, literally 2 feet from me. I'm a big fan of sauna and castor oil and all the things that you talked about. Dry brushing. Yeah. Okay.
I do that every day before shower.
Yes, I do a couple a week. Look at that. I don't. I've had one in my bathroom in the closet for 5 years. I probably need brand new coffee for it.
I need to get you one. Let me just tell you a little thing. I went to Swiss Mountain Clinic, and I was there 2 different times, 18 and 19, with a big group of people. I took on a retreat for their liver gallbladder cleanse. And what I learned, these people that, I guess the ones that are able to go and spend 2 weeks there, their average age was like 85. So like I was the young one by far, and they're all doing this intense detox, and they're all like hiking, like doing all these. I'm like, how in the world? Normally when people in my clinic do a detox, they don't feel so well for a few days, right? And I'm like, what in the world? And then I realized, number one, they did a weekly colon hydrotherapy, which is way more intense than a coffee enema. But number two, in the rooms, they had coffee enema kits, and every client was able to do those every night if they wanted, while during the detox only. And the German doctors there were like adamant about how powerful it was. And I realized while I was there, wow, this is powerful. And in medical school, we're not taught. In fact, it's thought of as quackery. It's not. There's good evidence. It's safe. This is not something that's, crazy. If you're like looking at me like, what are you doing talking about Dr. Joe? But the deal is, these kits they had there were these nice BPA-free plastic bottles with a tube, and so simple to use in this instant coffee charcoal mixture. I literally import them now from Switzerland. So not to be promoting, but we have them at drjillhealth.com, these simple kits. You can just search coffee enema kit, and they make it so much easier, because the ones in the US, they like hang a bag, cool the coffee, drain the, do all the stuff. This is literally, you'll take 2 teaspoons of this instant coffee, lukewarm tap water, shake it up, and you're good to go. You can do a coffee enema in 10 minutes flat.
Okay, well, that's why I have not done it, because you have to.
I'm going to send you one.
Okay, brew it, do all the things. I just put your website up there, drjillhealth.com. Because that's like, oh, good Lord. I mean, I could go get
exactly. That's what I did for 20 years. Cause it's too much work. It's not, it's just, when I get you one of these, and I am going to send you one, Danny, it is so easy. You're going to be like, why didn't I? And that's what I was in Switzerland. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because it's so easy once you get to do it, and it helps a lot. It really does.
Are you going to Switzerland anytime soon? I want to go to Switzerland.
I know you have to go. I'd love to go again this year in November.
Okay, well, let me know. Okay, what else? Okay, we're talking mold and memory. We could be here till midnight with Dr. Jill over all of this, because not only is she an expert on all of it, I mean, she's an expert on just environmental toxins in general, but just given what she's been through. But what else? We've talked about how to find it, what to do. I mean, we're high level here. We're not getting down to the nitty gritty on this stuff. How it affects you. I can't imagine. I wish we had a number on how many people. Again, I have no doubt a huge piece of my mom's Alzheimer's is this.
Yeah.
But what could you do for someone? Because there's millions like my mom who are in an assisted living. That, the kids, I'm the only child. I live 2.5 hours away.
Wow.
What can I do for her?
Yeah.
now,
So
right?
it's never too late to start the detox, but you're right. What I've seen with cognition, like I said, I worked with Dale Bredeman, taught some of his coursework. So I know this well on Alzheimer's and how serious it is. When it's a mild, we call it subjective cognitive decline. So we start to just forget names and things. That's easy. We can totally reverse that. When it starts to get mild, we can even often reverse or change that. When it gets moderate to severe, no matter what you do, it's hard to reverse that, but you could still increase in her quality of life by doing the basic detox. So if she had access to a sauna, it'd be great. If she had access to, yeah, I know, right? Like there's not easy way in the assisted
It's
living.
nothing. I
But maybe
know.
like a basic, what I would probably do at the very core with someone like that is give glutathione every day, liposomal, and give liver support. I have a combo that I like that has NAC, lipoic acid, selenium, and milk thistle. And so it's kind of all in one. And if that's all they did, and then a binder, and binders need to be taken empty stomach. So you could do like 2 caps of glutathione, 2 caps of the liver support, and 2 caps of charcoal on an empty stomach. And that would be a super, super simple kind of basic way to get a detox in.
Yes, it would. Yes. Okay. What else? Anything else? We've already got 40 minutes into this. People are loving this. I can't wait to look at
This is so fun.
everything. What else? Anything else that
Yeah,
we
so
need?
I guess the other thing is this can be overwhelming, right? Like you all,
Yes.
like some of you who have been there have commented, and we know. I'm sorry you've had to go through that, and the other ones are like going, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe this is a possibility." But what I want to say is, when we think about environmental toxic load, so mold is one thing, and it's a large, large part of environmental toxic load. But there's more things: chemicals, toxins, air we breathe, and it can get overwhelming and a bit depressing because we're all swimming in toxic soup. There's thousands of chemicals, new ones released each year. Where you start those, what are you putting on your body and your face? Because if you're not choosing things that are clean and free of parabens, phthalates, like commercial perfumes are almost all loaded with phthalates and parabens. Most body lotions, especially commercially ones. So make sure you can look at the labels and look paraben free. Environmental Working Group has a skin deep database, which will tell you what the best things are. And you can look there and see if your products are clean or not. But here's how I simplify it, because otherwise it gets totally overwhelming and depressing. I say, let's start with the basics, and that's clean air, clean water, clean food. And I love talking about this because it's actually, okay, I can do that. So if you're out there listening, clean air. We talked about air filters. I think everyone should have a good quality air filter in their bedroom where you spend 7 to 8 hours at night sleeping. That's a start. And you can get a nice unit, the Air Doctor, the Austin Air. You can get a cheaper unit, but you want to have a VOC filter in there, clean air. And 80% of the environmental toxic load is the air that we breathe. So the air really, really does matter. If you're by a highway or a golf course, you're getting other kinds of chemicals there. So air that we breathe, clean water. That would be the water that we drink. Don't be drinking from plastic water bottles. Make sure you have a filter, either a whole house filter, which is amazing, like reverse osmosis, but you can get a fridge filter. I have one by Clearly Filtered that's in my fridge, and it's not super expensive, and it does a great job of filtering out chemicals. We cannot count on our city water or well water if you're on a farm to be clean, so you must drink filtered water or a clean source of spring water. That's absolutely essential. And then clean food. And here's where you choose local, organic whenever possible. You can look up the Dirty Dozen, also by Environmental Working Group, and make your money count by going towards buying organic for the Dirty Dozen. Typically what's on the list is like strawberries, bell peppers, celery, and some of those foods you absolutely want to buy organic. And then things like avoiding farm salmon and getting wild caught fish if you're eating, meats and things. And just choosing the source of where you get things, and if possible, local versus trucking it across the country. You're going to get more nutrients. If you can grow your own, even better. But clean air, clean water, clean food, that doesn't include a lot of supplements, a lot of expensive doctor visits. You can start in your own house. You can start with your own cleaning products, and you can make a huge difference with just that input.
Absolutely. You are speaking my language there, right? Because I grew up like you in the country,
Mhm.
and, we didn't have much money at all. And I mean, you've got to start right where you are, right where you are. In fact, I mean, somebody texted me a picture today of mold on her around
Yeah.
anyway in her house, and she said, what can I do just to start? And I mean, you're brilliant like that. And this
Oh,
book, by the way, guys, is loaded with all of this kind of common sense practical medicine, which is the tagline of my book, Wild and Well, Six
well,
Common Sense Steps to Radical Healing, because this stuff is common sense,
yeah.
a lot of it. And then you have to get to the other stuff, the things like the actual detoxifying, those are not common sense things, right?
Yeah.
You have to have some
A little bit more, yeah.
guidance, with that. But you clean air, clean food, clean water. That's common
Yeah.
sense. And how to do it. Man, I just adore you. When are you coming to
Oh,
Nashville?
it's mutual. I need to come. I would love to come see you. I have lots of friends in that area.
Yes, you do. So if you ever get here, you need to come by the office and we'll do a big, we'll do some sort of something, some sort of event. I'm all about events. Hang on here. Amber said something here. I've heard so many people talk about complex trauma. Yes, that had to be worked through. Health trauma related to mold and autoimmune issues are a big deal when you have to search so hard for the true root cause why you're so sick. Isn't that true? I mean, and you know, how blessed are you that you recognized it, you noticed it, you knew, right? But just imagine the people like Amber or the millions of people out there who have no idea and go on for decades trying
That's
to
so
find an
sad
answer.
because there are solutions, and so many people feel like they're like I always say, autoimmunity, if you find the root cause and you find it early enough, is reversible. No doctor tells you that. And so I love giving that hope because it really, really, truly is. A lot of these things that we think are irreversible is reversible. Amber, thank you for sharing so much because you've been through a lot. And I talk a lot about in the book, we didn't have time for that, but trauma. Trauma is definitely connected to mold. And if you don't decouple the trauma through the limbic work, you're never going to get well there either. But that's a whole nother chapter for next time.
Decoupling. Oh my word. Yes. So, well, listen, guys, man, I appreciate you guys. Go to her website, drjillhealth.com. And well, I said on here, search for coffee enemas, but you can search for anything you want on there. But I'm going to do my coffee enema and I'm going to share.
Sending you one. I need your address, so we'll make sure.
I will give it to you. But guys, I'm telling you, get her book because I mean, even if you don't want it for any other reason other than the mold stuff we talked about, she breaks down at the end of every chapter the things that that she talks about in the book. Look here, there's our girl Marnie. Marnie, thank you for filling me in about how amazing Dr. Carnahan is years and years ago. And she is.
Well,
so
I'm going to say this publicly too. Marnie helped me. I hired her for her homeopathy years ago, and that was some of the start of the most profound healing in my life. So I want to shout out to Marnie because she was the instrumental piece in my own healing. I think we met at an ILEDS conference, and I was like, "What do you do?" And then all of a sudden, I was her client. So thank you, Marnie, for all you've done for me.
I'm going to tell you, Marnie is the real deal. There is nobody better than her. In fact, Marnie, we need to have you on Sunday night service. She's spoken at my Hashimoto's group. She has been, she's spoken at a lot of things that I've done. But anyway, Marnie, we'll get you on here. But Dr. Jill, I appreciate you. Good luck with your book. Ladies and gentlemen, get on, check her website out, sign up for her newsletter and support her because you know, it's all about a rising tide does lift all boats. And I'm a big, big believer in that. And we have to support each other. And not one person is the best at everything, right? It takes a village, doesn't it?
Yeah. And Danny, thank you for your love and support. And for all of you listening tonight, I hope it was helpful. And I so appreciate all of your love and support as well.
We appreciate you, girl. Good luck. Go order the book, guys. Get it. You won't regret it. I promise you. I mean, I literally read it this afternoon. 90% of it. I got 20 pages to go. Oh, Teresa's on here. She says, thank you. She's got,
thank you guys.
All right.